Hey, and hello, everyone. Welcome to the ComicBase live stream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. This is our 100th show, if you can believe this. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I can't believe we've made it this long, and hopefully we will not get interrupted as we go because they're busy hammering, sawing, drilling, and ripping internet cables outside on the aerial poles. And so if we go dead silently, we'll be back when the internet's back. We're looking forward to our fiber install tomorrow, and they've been tearing holy hell out of my property, for the last week or so. So today is no different. So let's hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. Anyway, we're going to be talking about a number of interesting things today. For instance, well, they all have a Batmobile theme in them. We'll be talking about, obviously, the Batgirl movie cancellation, one of the biggest cancellations of a movie right on the edge of its release in all of history, as far as I can tell. Other shenanigans over at Warner's. We'll be taking a deep dive into their quarterly earnings report because I cared enough that I gave up 91 minutes of my life to sit through the Q2 2022 earnings call presentation with David Zaslav and Gunnar, what's his name, the CEO and so forth from Time Warner Discovery or Warner Brothers Discovery. And I have thoughts. I thought there were things that were interesting that maybe you haven't heard before from other sources because I've actually seen financial statements before. And most journalists see numbers and they just kind of go, whoa, scary. And so anyway, maybe these are valid insights, but we'll let you judge for yourself. And then there are a number of other Batman related tragic stories in the news, or Batmobile related tragic stories in the news involving both a probably felonious use of funds out in San Mateo, California, and as well as the tragically the Batmobile models that will never ever be completed from the folks over at Eaglemoss, and we'll get into all those stories. But anyway, first of all, I want to say hi to everyone. So let's see. First of all, Oro, first up here. Great to see everyone. And by the way, I'm trying very hard to not make exactly the same mistakes I make on the previous show. Just I want to keep it mixing it up here. So I'm trying to keep my eye line looking at the StreamYard thing so I can tell when I've left the same comment up all day. But anyway, great to see you're surviving Minneapolis. Anything's funny. Well, to go, Jet City. Glad you could join us, man. And Robbie, thank you for the congrats on the 100. And Mike Beam, good and go. Yes, and Oro has plans to crash my place down in Florida. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. After a whole bunch of beers, DM me and maybe I'll make a poor decision. Who knows? Anyway, our mod Greg Hecht is here. Watch out, spammers. He's on your case, and we'll take it from there. All right, so Andre, hey, great to see you. And let's see more plans to get into the place in Florida. Let's see, Xanadu. Yes, in Seattle, even rained a little in today's raining in Seattle. Who would have ever guessed? Yeah, we'll be getting to the Eaglemoss thing, Mike, on that one. Thomas B, thanks very much for the 100, for the congrats on that. And finally leaving New Orleans, heading back home to California. Hell, enjoy the trip. Okay, and so I think we are about ready to roll. The mod says my face doesn't have a stun setting. All right, Tim Kilbreath, welcome to the show. All right, well, let's get into it. So obviously the big news of the day is, and let's go ahead and pull up the graphic on this one here. Let's see if we can shuffle graphics around. Forgive me, I have a lot of windows open on here, and I'll probably have to ditch over to my glasses at some point just to keep everything straight. But yes, this is, and taking it all of its full glory, that is the one of the few production stills you will ever see from the Batgirl movie, which apparently, according to David Zaslav, the new head of Time Warner, will never see the light of day if he has anything to say about it. And because he's the CEO, he has a lot to say about it. Let me pull up my notes on this one because they're long and copious. So this was announced right before last Wednesday, and so the advantage of not weighing in till now is I get to come in with a week's worth of other media coverage and follow-on events and try to sound like I know a little bit of something about it, anything. This movie was meant to be a big budget release. It started out with, I guess, with a $70 million budget. It ballooned over time with various problems. COVID is like the all-purpose thing to blame everything on in business. I've learned from watching everyone's quarterly reports, but they claim somehow COVID drove the reshoots and everything else over another $30 million, setting the budget to around $100 million, which is amazing because I see every inch of that money reflected in that cosplay suit that's in there, which I think that maybe probably came from Ruby's Halloween things. I'm pretty sure I saw someone wearing that last Halloween. It's something else. Most of the cosplayers at Comic Con would be embarrassed to come up with a costume that's that poorly constructed. But there you have it. It was to star Leslie Grace in a race swapped role here. This is the least surprising thing on the planet with comic movies. Yet another day, yet another race swap. And it was written by Christina Hodson, who we know from Birds of Prey, and also is writing the new Flash movie. It would have included the first trans character. She apparently has a best friend named Alicia Yao, spelled confusingly. It would have been played by someone named Ivory Aquino. Don't know anything about it. Don't know the character. Don't think it matters. But apparently there are people on the interwebs who have the sads now that, in addition to not having a race-swapped Batgirl in there, we now also don't have a whatever character that would have been. But anyway, yeah, David Zaslav, who is famous as the new head of Discovery of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is a mouthful of a company merger name, came in and fresh on the heels of he's been at the helm for 4 months now. One of his first actions he shut down inside about 3 weeks the CNN Plus. And he's been, kicking butt, taking names, and collecting scalps all over his company right now. The other movie that he just collaborated, we collaborated a Wonder Twins movie that was getting into production. It was pre-filming, but that is no more. And also, to everyone who cares, Scoob. It's the second Scoob movie. It's Scoob with an exclamation point. Holiday Haunts. 40 million bucks down the drain on that one. Apparently, I think I heard that the director team on that one was notified of it. Well, one of the team was off getting married. Very short notice on this one. It was not going to be released in any form. It's not going to be leaked out as a kids movie. They just pulled the plug on the damn thing. Hardcore, full stop. That thing is down. So that was interesting. So everyone has the same question of why all the bloodshed? Why wouldn't you at least leak this thing out to Time Warner Discovery? And sorry, I'm getting the part here where I want to keep on looking at the chat once in a while here. So just if you guys have comments that you want me to answer during this whole thing, please interrupt and just make sure you do the at ComicBase TV, so it's a little bit easier for me to see in the comments that are popping up down there. By the way, before I get into the deep dive on why he might have pulled all this stuff, let's talk about what's apparently not on the chopping block yet. Despite Ezra Miller's many and varied troubles with the law, underage people, and so forth, apparently the Flash movie is still a go. That's about $200 million on that one. The Strange Adventures series featuring Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith was due to direct at least one that was meant to be an anthology series, loosely based around at least the branding of the old Strange Adventures comic series. Kevin Smith was due to do a Bizarro one in there. I think he was trying to get Nicolas Cage in his Bizarro on it, or that might have been his because it's canceled. Let's see if I can get you his Bizarro for something else. But that one, Kevin Smith confirmed that series is dead now. But I looked at the slate of movies that Time Warner Discovery have out there, and it is a dizzying slate of movies that they still have on that are still officially in production at one level or another. I mean, they've loaded up their slate pretty darn good. So even with as much as has been clobbered lately, there's a lot more to go. No one knows the future of Doom Patrol, Batwoman, unfortunately. We will miss it. All 200 to 500,000 viewers it ever had in its life. Apparently, we'll see it no more. Most of the CW is just gone at this point. But CW itself got sold off to, was it Nexstar? But it's been absolutely crazy from a corporate divestment point of view. Oh, and there was also a Supergirl movie which was going to feature a, I believe it was a Latina Supergirl. Kind of, there'd been loose talk about that they were going to explain that Superman had to, I don't know, fly back home to Krypton and see if he could, I don't know, put all the pieces back together. I don't know what it was, but he was going to be really busy for a while. But luckily, we have replacement Supergirl around to act buff and flex a lot and be Superman now. Which between that and Batgirl, the comic. The folks who are given to, I'd say conspiracy theories, but at this point, in this world we live in now, what's a conspiracy theory? Um, they were going to say, "Wow, you were about to replace Superman, you're about to replace Batman." Those are basically the tent poles of the entire, DC franchise as far as characters, and you're going to replace them with diverse women, and that was all going to be a nightmare. And so maybe Zaslav went and said, "This is a bad idea. Let's not do it." I think there's a part of me that just because I think as comic people we all want to have a hero and a villain and a nice easy story where someone sees the light, or they good triumphs over evil, or whatever the thing is. I think when you're actually talking about the makings of big corporate deals like this, the real reasons are very complicated, and it's a lot of people involved. I mean, Time Warner Brothers Discovery is a huge company. Just to give you an idea of how huge these guys are, they have $56 billion just in debt. That's not even their revenue. But I mean, they're so fantastically, I mean, they have dozens of sub brands. They have, just thousands upon thousands of creatives involved. Not to mention all the people who have to stick their feet and their fingers in everybody's pie and so forth. So yes, the reasons why someone would kill a particular property, I think, are many and varied. I think some of the things that were being considered by Zaslav, there's a couple things going on. First of all, why is he being so aggressive right out of the gate? And a lot of that has to do with the idea of purchase acquisition cost. It's an idea in accounting that, hey, there's operational revenues, and there's a term called EBITDA. It's the most unpronounceable acronym in all of accounting. It's earnings before interest, tax deductions, and amortizations. But it's the basic measure of, is what we're doing making us any money? Before all the phony baloney we can do of writing off long-term assets and things like that can make things that aren't really profitable look profitable, and vice versa. But is basically our basic business getting the job done? Is kind of EBITDA is a good way of looking at that. And if you guys have the patience for that, we'll drill into some of this stuff in a little bit more detail as we go into the earnings call. But anyway, he has a chance, right, because they're just closing out of the big acquisition phase of the merger deal, to take a lot of hits on writing off projects, cutting things off before they become part of the EBITDA for the next quarter. He has a chance to just write them off into one huge write-off called the acquisition cost. And Warner is actually doing that to the tune of $2 billion of lost value between what they thought they were going to be carrying on the books when they started the acquisition process and where they are now. And the window for doing that, I think if it hasn't closed this week, it's closing, I think, at the end of the month. Yeah, he has every incentive in the world, from an accounting standpoint, from a business judgment standpoint, at least with analysts, to hit hard and fast. If you're going to make any big moves, make them right now. And he definitely took that message to heart. That's definitely part of it. But the other thing that came along with it is, and we'll go over this some when we go over the earnings call thing, is David Zaslav, the new guy, has a very different take on what the role of streaming and theatrical releases are than his predecessor in that field, Walter Hamada, who used to be the head of DC Films. Still nominally is, but clearly he's been defanged. There was talk of him resigning. But Warner during COVID had pursued a day and date release strategy, where all your big releases, because there are no theaters to show them in, and streaming obviously is becoming very important in everyone's life, that they were going to put out these things day and date. So the very same day they become available for streaming, they also they become available in whatever theater they would have ever been in, and so forth. and it basically just comes down to we stream, we stream, we stream. He is Zaslav is clearly not a fan of this approach. He wants theater productions to be big. He wants them to be splashy. He wants them to make a difference down the chain of the value chain of the company, and he wants to repeat it through all the different windows you're used to seeing. In other words, you do a big theatrical release, then you do a big DVD release, then you do a big pay-per-view release, and so forth. And he wanted this thing to become cultural touchstones again, is because, as you put, there's a thing you get from seeing a movie in a theater that you just don't get the same thing in a theater. And I think we can agree that the movies that made huge impressions in our life rarely were the ones that we saw while sitting alone in our house in our pajamas watching watching HBO or whatever the thing was. There might be some cool stuff we saw there, but those aren't the big moments in life. And I think he wants to establish Warner Brothers Discovery as the makers of big moments in life, and then hopefully also turn the money around to make that make sense. All right, let me do a quick check of things here. All right, let's see here. Let's go to some of this ones here. All right, so Jesse Comics says, look forward to the new DC implosion coming sooner than later. Yeah, we're going to get into the financials on this one, and if you guys have been watching the stock price or the financials on this one, I hope your kid's not going to college based on this money anytime soon, I guess is the nice way to put it. Greg Heck says, one theory is that Warner Brothers Discovery thinks that voluntary cancellation of some project will give them a tax write-off that will help them affect the cost of acquiring WB. Yeah, it's, tax write-offs, it isn't so much that a loss isn't a loss. It just, there are some assuming you're not just monkeying with the books in order to say not pay actors and do things like that, which there certainly can be some of, because certain times you have actors who have incentive structures that only kick in once you've had a theatrical release, or that once you have this or that. And so you can shaft different people in your payment structure based on what bucket you put the loss into. But as an overall corporate entity, a loss is a loss. I mean, whether it's a deduction loss for unsaleable product, as we'll get to in a later story, or lost revenue, legal lawsuits, whatever else. I mean, it's money out is money out. There's no getting over it. And basically, 100 million gone is 100 million gone for this one. The weird thing on this one is he didn't try to claw back some of the money by releasing it. It was meant to be an HBO Max project, and they decided they weren't going to put it out theatrically. They weren't going to put it on HBO Max. They're literally going to just bury the film, which of course is going to make this thing appear, someone is going to be working in an internal duplication, group over at Warner Brothers or something. And you just know, just like the Fantastic Four movie from the 80s, or was that 90s, that there's going to be a grainy VHS copy of this will just appear somewhere at a con. It'll be sold for $20, and whoever sells all the old videotapes over at the shows. But until that day, no one is meant to see this movie. Let's see here. And Greg also asks, but it does remain to be seen whether voluntary cancellations will actually be allowed to be counted on their books come tax time. Yeah, I don't, as far as I can tell, and I'm not a CPA, much less a really, really involved corporate CPA, but I don't think they're going to have any problem on this one. It really just becomes like, I think the major advantage for him right now is when you're being scored as there's two things. First of all, you want your board to be happy with you, and you also want investors to be happy with you. And they were clearly worried about the last one on the call. Is when investors are looking at your company's performance, if you can sit there and say, well, all this lost money, that was just all part of the acquisition. That wasn't me. That was my predecessor. It was just so hard to put the two companies together. No one knew what a mess they'd left behind for us. We hear this in politics too. It's like, it isn't that I had bad policies. It's that my predecessor left such a mess. But the same thing goes in corporate, where you can take a one-time loss that's very heavy and say, well, that's just the clanking of the gears as we tried to mesh the two companies together. And that carries some weight for one quarter. After that, if you're running the show, the next quarter's on you. And at that point, people are going to be looking at your bottom line numbers, your EBITDA and so forth, and your average revenue, average revenue per user, your ARPU, and so forth. And if they don't see those things starting to move in the right direction, then a year from then, you're probably not the company anymore. It doesn't matter how many good moves you had made. So yeah, I think he wants to just take this hard, hard. And was it was the thing from Pink Floyd? Give him a sharp shot, a short sharp shot. It was a sharp short shock. Yes, Briticisms, they're hard to say, but you want to do it good and hard, but get it over with and move on. All right, so I think, and Jesse says, I'd rather see them put out 10 to 15 great books per month and 50 to 60 mediocre books, whatever they decide, just keep the number of titles per month to a minimum. Remember the late 70s? Yeah, no kidding. That was more or less the topic of the entire last stream. All right, and Ed says, I hope the Doom Patrol and Peacemaker survive the changes. So far, the indications are they're both looking pretty good. We shall see, because we're going to get into the earnings call now, and I think one thing, if you're listening to this one, is imagine that you're an employee at Warner Brothers Discovery and you're hearing about some of these directions, and just picture what that looks like in terms of corporate cost cutting in your life. And yeah, I'd be worried, because I mean, clearly things are going to move around pretty hard. All right, so let's get to it a little bit. I'm going to switch screens here so I can show, I'm going to be showing some slides from the really fascinating PowerPoint I put up with, just again, on your behalf, guys. I took a hit for the team on this one. And if you guys want to, you actually can access this through the investor relations portal over at Warner Brothers Discovery. You have to sign up for an account. It only takes a second. It doesn't cost anything, and they'll mail you a link, and then you can get to the presentation. But no, I got to say, this is, as corporate financial foo goes, this was probably one of the more interesting ones I've ever gone through, just in terms of what the implications for what the company were. All right, so Zaslav went in and spent 20 minutes doing a bunch of blah, blah, blah about how, yeah, we were all about quality and best of class and streaming and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, nothing of great significance at the start of it. One thing I thought was a little bit interesting for the beginning is he's announcing some of the new team members on his best of class team that they're bringing in to oversee the change. And he mentioned a guy named Sadiq, who was brought over from Warner to become their new diversity, equity, and inclusion leader. And I'm thinking, oh my God. All right. So for anyone who was hoping that the overall theme of this whole thing was that Warner's had enough of bleeding out over diversity initiatives, well, clearly that was not the number one message he was getting across at the start. So keep that in mind as you decide what this means culturally. I'm going to leave that one as an open question, because honestly, I don't know the answer, but that one was an interesting one. Zaslav made a big point about it. He says, yeah, I think of us as the fifth broadcast network. So we have such a wide range of content that we can put out there, between everything we've got on HBO and Warner Brothers Media and so forth, that it's like, you got ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and I guess there's whatever his imagination for Warner is. Now, beyond that, you get into some, and I'll probably show some of these slides. Intentionally, I believe, make them hard to parse as far as what they call linear broadcasting, which is to say cable that happens in real time and you need to be around for it. So think about a sports game or a show where you can't just stream it on demand and download the whole thing. They're having some financial, most of their actual money is coming from those sources right now, and they're having some real growth issues on that one. But anyway, as far as being a fifth broadcast network, I wonder how that's working for them at the moment. Anyway, so more blah, blah, blah. And then I think we got our first 2 or 3 mentions of House of the Dragon coming up. This is a Game of Thrones prequel, which you guys can turn to the fan sites for the evaluation of whether this is going to be good, bad, woke, unwoke, fun, not fun, in character, not in character, etc. But man, oh man, do they have a lot of eggs in that particular basket. They are clearly counting on that one being, saving their butt on some big ways. Much like what I'm feeling of, it's an expensive series, much the same model of what Amazon's doing with Rings of Power. All right. So the most interesting thing he said happened at 11:57. We will be fully embracing theatrical, and we're basically he announced. And let me see if I'm probably not going to play his audio for the call on this one, but if you guys are interested in this at all, um, yeah, let me see if I can get this queued up, and I'll see how this reads on the stream. Give me a shout out as how levels and things like that are for.
Elevated, elevated, elevated. We saw this clearly demonstrated with the Batman and Elvis. We have a different view on the wisdom of releasing direct-to-streaming films, and we have taken some aggressive steps to course-correct the previous strategy. With respect to streaming, our main priority right now is launching an integrated SVOD service. And in a few moments, JB will talk more about the strategy and some of the key building blocks and milestones as we bring HBO Max and Discovery Plus together under one offering.
All right. So what's going on with that is basically two things, and you're going to see this later on in the next presenter on this one, a guy named JB Perrette. He's the CEO and president of Global Streaming and Games of SVOD, Streaming Video on Demand. He's the hatchet man of this whole presentation. Zaslav is basically there's like, oh, I'm here all about the corporate vision, at least in this particular thing. But JB Perrette is a name that we should be paying attention to, just as if you like watching who's actually moving the chess pieces around, look to see what he does next to the extent you can, because I'm guessing he's going to be the one moving most of the pieces. But the last thing that Zaslav said right at the beginning there, which is very consequential, is they are going to be uniting the Discovery Plus and HBO Max products together, and they're going to take a year to do it. It's not planning to. It's coming up. It's going to be starting region by region, but starting in the United States, and they're going to be kicking off in summer of 2023. So it's going to take them a year to get the tech together, to get all the pieces together, to unite those two products. But in a world where people are starting to really watch their money, as far as how many damn streaming services do I need to be subscribed to, they're trying to make it so that you don't need to choose between Discovery Plus and HBO Max. They're going to turn that into one tech stack. They think that there's some advantages to one platform versus the other in terms of discoverability of content and things like that. They want to take the best of this, that, and the other thing. But frankly, what they want to do is they don't want to support both of them. They're going to unite them under one value proposition. They'll probably sell it with tiers, and we can talk about that in a second. But if you worked on the one that isn't the one they choose, I hope your resume is updated, because your job's going away. All right. So, and he basically just said as much. So anyway, JB Perrette comes in there, and then we get to kind of like their take of where the world's going as far as this whole picture. And let me queue up some points here. Oh, at 1340, I think. No, there's no slide up, but he did drop the first note there that they are going to be doing a free ad-supported service. What they're calling it FAST, free ad-supported television. It's a ways out, but they basically, in a world where they're admitting they don't have strong ad sales and they're expecting ad sales to fall faster as the recession grips on, they want to have a version of their services that you don't pay any money for at all. You just watch a bunch of ads and we get paid that way. Much like if you bought a smart TV in the last couple of years, you can watch 100 channels or 200 channels just by sitting through endless numbers of ads for some medical pill that you've never heard of before, which solves some kind of condition. And by the gauzy images they always do, I will never know. There's something called like Bituver or whatever. It solves a problem which apparently is had by people who stare meaningfully off into the distance on gray days as the sun goes down while fishing. So whatever medical problem that is, apparently Bicturma is your answer. I have no idea. But anyway, apparently that is the model going forward for a great number of people who watch TV, and they want to be able to sell to it. All right, but let's get into this one. So JB Perrette, and let's go at 1830 in the call is where this starts getting fun. All right, so basically he says, yeah, all right, look, once upon a time, our model was this. We have all this content, And it's either going to be TV content or movie content, and we release it through a succession of windows. So movies start out in a theatrical release, then they go to DVD, they go to video on demand, rental, pay TV. Eventually, it gets recast as a broadcast thing on Sunday night TV or where the whole thing is, and then eventually you license it out. And it doesn't even matter if it runs on your network at a certain point. You sell whoever will buy it, but you try to extract value out of the thing every point of the process. And the same thing goes for the TV, the different TV offerings. Well, that's the traditional way that media companies made money off their content. When then, people got streaming happy and COVID happy, and they decided this is the model. We have stuff, we put it out on streaming, and we hope someone bought it. That's it. That's the whole model, right? And this caused everyone to lose a crap ton of money. So he's like, okay, yeah, I'm the new guy here. We are rethinking this one in a big way. We're not doing that anymore. So we're going to put the two companies together. We're going to be strong and diversified. But we're going to take HBO Max, or you take Discovery. They each have their own things to offer, but damn it, we're going to make money off each stage of the process as we go, and really give a new emphasis on the theatrical release. I do like, and as if I'm not an investor in Time Warner in particular, there's probably something fund I own something of that has some holdings in it. But as far as I know, I'm not a direct investor. But I feel like someone's paying attention when they got to this slide, when they said, all right, look, our focus right now is on ad-free stuff. We want to make the people who we want to make maximum money from the people who want the nicest experience possible, the people who want to buy UHD versions of big films, who don't want to sit through ads, who want the best quality we can give them on the whole thing. We want to charge them the most money we can get away with. And for the people who are just one step down from that one, okay, we'll give the one where, like, okay, we run an ad before and after it, and it's not quite as good a quality wherever else, and we charge you less for that. But they also want to, in the future, get to the point where, yes, they're competing directly with your Samsung and your LG TVs and all the people who are just giving the stuff away and running a million ads for whatever the hell they can get for the whole thing, because they know that there's a large group of people who will never pay anything to watch the things they want. I mean, you call this a race to the bottom if you want, but there are definitely people who are like, no, I just want the cheap thing. I will watch the crummiest possible experience of the thing, but I am very sensitive to price, and I want, if you want me to watch it, then I gotta watch it for free. I'll sit through a million ads. It'll be every 8 minutes if I have to, but I want to watch it for free. So they've decided they want to play in this space. It's look for a wide-based media company. Maybe he feels like he has to, but I think they're paying attention to the model, and I think that's an accurate view of the situation. So there's a bunch of blah 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 about how great all their current stuff is here. I thought this was the most interesting slide of the entire deck until you got to the financials, and so this one, and again, if you're keeping, is this a anti-woke or a woke move? This is the one I think that starts giving you some hope, again, other than the blah 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 about how wonderful our content is. He said, look, we realize we have two different offerings in terms of the people who use it. One of them is HBO Max. It's males, men, tend to be the people who are watching this one. It's scripted. This isn't improvised stuff. This isn't Ice Road Truckers. It isn't what else. You're looking forward to watching the movies. This is, you're paying attention as you're going. It isn't like I'm just kicking back on my phone as the thing's streaming along. I'm excited to know when the thing's coming on. If it's episodic, and I'm not gonna dump the whole series at once, then it's like, hey, the new whatever the new Westworld or whatever else drops at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. on Sunday nights or whatever it is, and people will be ready at 9 p.m. on Sunday nights to watch it. When it's new, they'll watch the first. If you're in the YouTube space, people are very interested in being the first one to review it, because then you'll get more clicks on your YouTube channel and so forth. But it's appointment viewing. This is there's excitement to the whole thing, and it's home of fans, right? It's those annoying sons of guns like us who actually care that you got the costume right, or you got the costume wrong, or you broke continuity, or you're in canon or out of canon, and all this stuff. This is crazy male-based stuff. And whoever did this slide, I'm guessing the assistant to JB Perrette, I think is absolutely talking to the market. I mean, if you've been to a comic shop, you know who these folks are because that's us. But there's also the people that we love and we're married to in many cases, and that tends to be the Discovery Plus viewers. It's female, so you'll talk about Love in Atlanta, Love in Hip Hop, whatever the thing is, female skewed. It's unscripted, it's reality TV, it's a lot of stuff about relationships. You lean back view. In other words, it's like, yeah, what do you want to do tonight? I don't know. Put on some TV, and you'll sit there and play with your phone or have some drinks and chat over it, whatever else. It's comfort viewing. It makes you feel like there's something going on. It feels like, you're part of the world. And and you go for the genres. I mean, there's everything from like the hoarder genres to the romance genres to whatever have you. But yeah, there are people who just kind of like that genre, and they're going to turn on if it meets those kind of needs. But they're really different viewers from each other, and so suddenly Zaslav finds him in possession of or at least heading a company that caters to both groups of things. And I like how, even though he knows he has to put the two companies together in order to have the synergies of using the company efficiently, I like that he wasn't pretending that these aren't different groups. In other words, if I mean, the winning move is not to make a superhero or if I take a beloved sci-fi property or a beloved fantasy property, it isn't to sit there and say, well, it's like 90% guys who like this thing. Oh, I know, I'll attract the women by making all the characters women. No, not the way to go. And at least whoever put this slide together knows this. And so I'm like, okay, all right, I'm feeling a little bit of hope on this whole thing. All right, so and then 18, he was also talking about there being a collapsing window that all the stages, as you're releasing through different points of the whole thing, are merging closer and closer to each other, but they still wanted to extract value throughout the whole thing. Forgive me, I made a lot of notes to myself on the whole thing. So anyway, so let's get to the financials, because this is I don't know. I wouldn't call it porn for doom junkies of accounting, but it's pretty close. Before we quite get there, though, it's interesting because they do a little bit of, before we get to the financials, let's talk about how great we are. And they talk about, look, we're a global powerhouse. Look how great our brands are. People love HBO. They love Discovery. They have CNN or have heard of it. And so forth. Look where DC Comic. As a matter of fact, I gotta move my graph here so you can see where they stuck DC. DC is right there next to Looney Tunes in terms of where they thought the brand was. So DC is a brand. Not all that. As franchises go, and I think I can put myself back on screen now. Batman, okay, people know who Batman is. Wonder Woman, number 2 on the list. Been getting a lot of buzz around Wonder Woman. Superman, okay, heard about that. Shark Week, Game of Thrones. Okay, a 90-Day Fiancé universe. Yes, it's, again, a show I'm never going to watch. My wife might watch, but I will never watch. Wizarding World of Harry Potter, something that actually does have carryover between the two things. You talk about the brands, things like that, and then that's where the comics exit the slides of things that they're proud of. By the way, if you're watching the minutia for what's up, down, and sideways on these whole things, you might have noticed if you went to the DC website lately, you used to go to dccomics.com. Now you just go to dc.com, and they tell you about all the things that DC is doing, including apparently they still have comics. So that's a thing. To make of that what you will. Anyway, bunch of stuff about sports. They have portfolios of things. My God, here's Shark Week again. Oh yeah, it'll be great. All right, and now we're gonna get to financials. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get to that, he's talking about when you're going to roll out the free service. U.S. is looking for summer of 2023. That is not a massively aggressive execution deadline, as far as I would say on this one, and they're not looking to roll out into Asia Pacific until a year after that. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think you want to move, but I guess you're wondering how fast your team can move with a deadline like that. All right, now we get into the the doom porn of how to say terrible things about your own company's numbers while still keeping it positive. And this apparently is how you become a CEO, a CFO. Um, a guy named Gunnar Wiedenfels is at the helm of this whole thing, and he's talking about, well, yeah, look, we're on schedule to pay down $6 billion in debt. And it's like, well, that sounds good. If that was my family credit card, I'd be thinking, 6 bill off the credit card, I got to be crushing it. You will find out 20 minutes later that it takes them from $56 billion down to $50 billion in debt if all the projections go well. So yeah, it's it's no, there's no actual lies in here that they know of. There are lots of forward-looking statements, is what they call it, is in things that we think will happen. We're not 100% sure, but we think it'll happen. When you're watching things like this, you got to watch where the mist. It's like watching a magician. It's like, if I'm showing you one hand, I'm not showing, and I say, hey, watch this hand over here. This hand is the one that's doing the funny business, right? So when you're doing this with financial stuff on people's financial statements, watch what they're spotlighting, because that it won't be wrong, but it might be utterly misleading as far as the overall strength of the company or not. So just watch out for that one. So the first statement is a curious one. They're expecting peak EBITDA. God, it's hard to say. Loss in 2022. Oh, well, the peak is going to be over in 2022. What's that mean? Oh, that means that we're going to lose money like the son of a gun in 2022. And we expect to break even in the US 2 years from now. This is their optimistic assumptions at the start of the financial thing. It only gets worse from here. They are now talking about, yeah, but look, we made $1 billion on global from direct to consumer in 2025, or at least we think we will. So that's a big number, right? And that's good. And we think we'll have 130 million global subscribers in 3 years, up from 90 now. And we have healthy global avenue revenue. ARPU, average revenue per user growth. We think that's going to go up from the $8 it is now, which actually, if you've looked at what Disney's doing off their subscriber base, I think they've got a number like $5 a user is all they're making off of their subscribers. That's actually not bad for the streaming world. And they think that when they do expand where they're going right now, they think they'll make 50% incremental margins on all the new guys. And I'm thinking, well, from your mouth to God's God's ears, as they say. We'll see how that works out for you. Let's go on to that one here. I'm sorry, I don't want to get too far ahead of the chat on this one. Let me go back here. Let's see. Let's see here. Don't want. Okay, so Greg says, that's Word on the Street is the Peacemakers in the clear for season 2. Don't have any idea on Doom Patrol. Yeah, the word I've heard on that one is that Doom Patrol at the moment is okay. It has the advantage of it's a pretty cheap show. It's not super cheap. I think it's Brendan Fraser is the head guy on that one, but it's not super expensive. Being super expensive is definitely one of the factors that did in Batgirl. Is if Batgirl had been a $40 million thing, they probably would have let it go. But as a $100 theatrical release, I think it just got to be embarrassing and not at all in strategy. Oh, by the way, I did dig listening to was it I'm looking for his name again, JP, I think it was the streaming guy. He says, like, yes, shows like Batgirl, Wonder Twins, and Scoob, Haunted Halloween or Haunted Holidays, just they're not in line with our decision to make things that basically translated to make money and actually have a reasonable chance of making that money back. It was like bam, it was like just right out there. It's like, yeah, the financial case for this thing existing was unsustainable, so we killed them. I'm like, all right then. You rarely see that kind of finality from anyone on a corporate board, so it was refreshing. All right, so yeah, let's look at some. I think the subscriber numbers on the next slide here. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me also catch up on this thing. Jetsy asks, does anyone watch Shark Week? And yes, people do. And Greg, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. thought I said that, but I might have gone fast. All right, so yes, and welcome to Accounting Hour on the ComicBase live stream. All right, so here's what they would consider success if they could make this happen. All right, they'd like to add 1 billion in by 2025, to their down revenue. They would like to get more people paying more money to as they're doing it. Disciplined global scaling, in other words, they want to expand into emerging markets and not go broke doing it. And they want to have a way of selling every damn bit of content they've got, in the in the queue. So whatever they got, they want to be able to sell it to whoever's willing to pay. Which hey, who could blame them? All right, so here's Gunner over here with the CFO stuff. Okay, all right, now look carefully, and whenever you're seeing people do stacked bar graphs like this, all right, so have a look over here at the at how they're switching the different lines on this whole thing. And you can already tell that, yes, you're not lying on any of this, but whenever you see a magician or a financial analyst or where else do anything unusual, you always have to ask yourself, why did you rearrange it that way? And so you'll notice, for instance, that networks, of course, that's their linear content, is first in line on both of the legends over here. It's third in line on the graph here. It forms this nice, solid, hard to measure base of the stacked bar graph over here, and this bigger piece up there. Hard to say which one's bigger than the other from this one. You'd have to drill into the financial statements for the company on this one. You notice there's no top line numbers on these ones over here, but the studios up top here, the share of EBITDA on the whole thing in terms of this is what they got from revenue. And this down here is what they managed to keep. Notice how studios didn't do super great on this one. Anyway, DCC is about the same. Corporate and others also about it, about the same. But you're already starting to set up some questions for the analysts should be asking about, what are you trying to say here? All right, and then we have the part where I like you have a series of pluses and minuses of what's going on here. So okay, well, look, on the good news, we had some good revenue come in here, and the very first thing that they mention is Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. So if you've ever played the Lego games where name the character, whether it's Batman or Lord of the Rings or whatever else, which now I'm thinking are all Warner Brothers Discovery properties, you can always reenact elements of the movie, and whenever you bust up an enemy, it always breaks into bricks. These are very cute games. These are all ages, things like that. They did the Skywalker Saga on that one, which interesting must have been a cross license with their good friends over at Disney. But video games are actually bigger than movies now, and one of the big things that was a good bit of news on their bottom line was that a Lego Star Wars game really killed it. The TV licensing did okay. Apparently, they opened up Warner Brothers Studios tour in London, which sign me up. Next time I'm over there, I'm definitely going. That's pretty cool. And then they had to point out that we weren't able to get theatrical releases out the door in any kind of time. Almost nobody was making money in theaters and so forth, so everything was kind of going through hell. And then you'll see a number of slides down here, which basically come down to our costs start getting out of control. And again, the usual, well, blame COVID for some of this stuff, but COVID delays. Yeah, it was COVID delays that caused our sports licensing fees to go up by 16% and so forth. And anyway, it's apparently the all-purpose bogeyman for everything that went wrong in their financials. I see. The operating expenses, if you look down here, went up 11% prior to 11% up from the prior year. Their cost of revenue, their sports rights apparently are just driving them nuts. And I didn't even know that they had a very solid sports offering. Apparently, very involved with the international markets. If you guys are followers of that, maybe you can cue me on this one. But have a look at their pro forma revenue over here. Absolutely flat, 1% change on the whole thing from 6,164. These are in millions, so that's $6 billion to 6.1 billion to 6.1 billion. But their pro forma adjusted EBITDA, and now we're starting to talk about money going away. But now we'll also see But the good news here, look at cost synergies are about to happen. Translation of that one is, and they say, look, we won't have higher marketing, which means we can use one channel to advertise all of our stuff. So if we put an ad out on Warner, it's going out on Discovery, it's going out on HBO, it's going out on every one of our brands. So our marketing, we're expecting it to cost less, and we expect to spend a lot less money on duplicated effort, which means expect about half of those jobs to kind of go away in the merger. So if you are Warner, yeah, keep that resume that resume updated. The pro forma adjusted EBITDA, second quarter of 2021, they lost $235 million on that one. And in the second quarter of 2022, they managed to more than double it to $560 million loss on the pro forma EBITDA. So yeah, this is terrible. Their revenues are flat. Their costs are going up 16% prior year quarter to quarter. They spent 33% more on their programming. The excuse on this one is, well, we just put out we just put into production a lot of really expensive shows that are really going to pay off a while from now. So that they're thinking about the Game of Thrones prequel and a few of the others, and they're thinking, man, baby, this better pay off for us, because if not, we are hosed, because man, did we invest on these, and a lot of other things like that. This one is very interesting. So DTCS, direct to consumer, sequential subscriber growth in Q2. And the lady from, let me look at my notes on this one. I think it was Credit Suisse had, as they say, had questions on this slide. What they're saying is, well, we're harmonizing.
We have refined our.
We're harmonizing our direct-to-consumer subscriber definition. And if you look at the fine points on this one, it says, well, okay, because remember, this is all on the back of a previous merger with AT&T. So AT&T Mobile, apparently, if it was part of folding in your service there, you would get, or at least you had the option to get, a free subscription to HBO as part of some of those deals. And there was something like 10 million subscribers that technically had that as part of their deal, never activated it. So, we're listing you as a subscriber, but we know that you're not watching. And I'm actually going to give them props on this one. This is absolutely, I'm going to say this is long overdue. It's a brave move to do this, because it's going to make your numbers look like absolute ass this time out, but it's the right thing to do, is to just take those guys off the books, right? You're carrying dead accounts. Take them off the books. They're not making you money. All they're doing is pumping your subscriber numbers, so you can say, hey, we have 100 million subscribers, but really only have 90 million. And so they took the loss of 10 million subscribers off their hit. They think they're going to make this up. They think they're going to add 40 million over the next 3 years. Good luck on that one. But I do think this was that was a bold move, and I think they're absolutely right to do it. So I mean, props to the guys over there who made that happen. All right, excuse me a second here. I forgot to mute a phone. All right, cool. We are good. So beyond that, though, we once again get into the realm of, fantasy and wishful thinking. We think that this will go up because we have good, offerings, and that we think we'll get this. But, honestly, I'm looking at this thing and I'm seeing numbers that are flat. If you're talking about between 90.4 million and 92 million subscribers, you're not growing anywhere. All right, let me see, because I think we're getting towards the end of what were kind of the really interesting ones here. Again, terrible. I mean, you notice that what they're doing here is to say, well, this is, we're refocusing our growth and whatever else. But I mean, the initial numbers out of this whole thing are bloody. All right. And now they're down to okay, we just showed you, we talked about how strong we were. We talked about, what we were doing to do things. Let's talk about why our numbers suck so bad, and why we're going to take a $2 billion write-off as part of our, in addition to what we already thought it would cost us to merge the two companies. And there's a long section here. It's about 40 minutes in of the whole thing. It's worth listening to on the thing, because it's pretty, it's pretty fun. But they're saying basically, yeah, we spent a lot of money to build up some better properties. We wanted to make them exclusive to HBO Max, but we weren't getting paid for it, and so we gave up some money on that one. But hopefully we can not do the same mistakes going forward and so forth. We spent a lot of money on some expensive things there. Again, sometimes these were going to pay, sometimes they weren't, and we had higher than average audited carve out financials than the prior productions. Basically, in merging the two companies together, there's more things that we discovered were bogus than we needed to before. It's not quite Elon Musk and Twitter levels of foo, but yeah, again, this is all part of the let's take the loss hard and fast and then move on. So what'd we do to make this all better? He says to the now shocked investors out on the call. Well, we shut down CNN Plus, which you got to say, I think that was, I want to say it was like it was at least a couple $100 million they had invested on that one, and they killed it in 3 weeks and change. So, all right, that's decisive. I got to give it to you. They're restructuring the content portfolio for scripted linear kids and animation, and this is where you got I think Gunnar saying kids and animation content without an adequate financial return. They just came out and said, yeah, there was no financial case for ever making these movies, and so we just killed them. And at the end of the day, if you say, why did they kill Batgirl? Why did they kill Scoob? Why did they kill Wonder Twins? That was what it came down to: is the people who greenlit those projects never established why they were ever going to make their money back, and so they said, screw it. We wasted enough money on this thing. We're not going to go through releasing it and so forth. Now, additionally, there's a pretty good response later on with Zaslav talking about. Let me go ahead and see if I can find it. Oh yes, here we are. At the end of this whole thing, there was a Q&A with the analyst, and the very first one was got from an analyst from Deutsche Bank. The very first question is, why'd you kill Batgirl? And he's mentioning Black Adam, Shazam, Flash. He's like, these are very significant films. We're gonna make the best quality movies. We won't make any movie before its time. It'll all be great. But the money quote is on direct to streaming is like, look, we're not going to make expensive content on direct to stream. We're just not going to do it. There's no comparison to the theatrical releases. And so if we spend a lot of money for it, damn it, it's going to a theater. And anything where we spend a lot of money, it's not going to a theater, that gets rethunk. And quote, we want to grow the DC brand, the DC characters, but our job is to protect the DC brand. And again, if you're keeping score of is this woke based or not in terms of why they killed it, I'd say it's probably your strongest evidence. He sat there and said, look, we've been futzing around with these race swaps, gender swaps, tranny friends that, are inserted in the character for no apparent reason, that, behind a character that no one wants to particularly see, without good production values, that aren't going to attract the audience we want, that aren't going to become fan archetypes. And party time's over. We can't play anymore. We don't have the money. I took this as a really good sign, all things considered. This seemed like a company that knows that they're in trouble and is trying really hard to get things going. All right, so I talked enough about this one. I got to talk to the other stories because I'm running long, but I want to not do that. I really would encourage you, if you're interested, to go ahead and sign up on the investor site on Warner Brothers Discovery and listen to the call, see what you think, especially if you do that, if you're interested. All right, so Greg reminds people, back to the merged HBO Max and Discovery Plus. If you have a subscription to roast beef and you're told that you'll now be paying more for the roast beef, but you're also getting tutus with your roast beef, well, you keep the roast beef subscription. I think that remains to be seen. Yeah, they actually addressed this at one point. They were saying, yeah, we expect about 1.4 million people that have merged accounts. You have both of them. We expect them not to subscribe to both, but if we wrap them together and you can get them both, well then, if I'm not paying more than they expected you to keep it. But another 1.4 million duplicated accounts were essentially going to go off their list as part of the merge. And there was also questions about what the pricing for all this was going to be at the different tiers, and of course that was too early to answer. All right, so let's move off of that one, and let's go on to our other fabulous bits of woe. Yeah, that was that was terrible. All right, so let me go pull up a web browser here, and let's talk about our next Batmobile related story, if I can pull it up. Let's see here. I have a whole big tabbed out list of things here. See if I can get them to pop to the front. Yay, I did. Okay, cool. So let's go to the video player here and advance to the next slide if we can. No, of course, you're not going to do that. All right. Excuse me while I shuffle switcher windows. Oh, by the way, last thing I want to say about this. If you don't get the idea that Discovery is in trouble and knows it, this is Discovery's stock track for the 4 months they've been around. That is a serious destruction of shareholder value. But the only thing that makes this look any better right now is here's Disney's. That's Disney, not just for the last 4 months because Disney's been around for the last 4 months, but that's Disney's last year. Yeah, so I don't know that Marvel and Disney and DC are doing that much better. It does look though that maybe they're bottoming out. You see a bump like that at the end there on the tail for Netflix's earnings as well. The one big tech streaming company that didn't get murdered in the stock market over the last year, at least not quite as bad. Amazon, I believe, is only down about 20%. They're a lot more than the streaming company. Honestly, Amazon's kind of a tech company pretending to be everything else. Where Amazon still makes all their money is in their Amazon web servers. Anyway, so let's go to our next story out. And this involves, yes, our friend the Batmobile, specifically the 1966 version of this one. And let me go ahead and put on my glasses here just to give my eyes a break. And let's talk about how this one made its way into the news recently. This is from SF Gate. And here, I'll go and throw this one over on the other screen here. Okay, let's go full screen on that. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? Do these things always have to? Okay, I'm getting this. We're getting this queued up. All right, and now let's switch. Okay, all right. So according to SF Gate, this is San Mateo. According to court documents, an Atherton real estate agent, Atherton, by the way, if you don't know the Bay Area, is where the stupidly rich people in Northern California live. I mean, it's Beverly Hills without the glitz. It's you made a lot of money doing something very involved. I remember talking to Debbie Coleman, the CFO of Apple at the time, and she was so proud when she got appointed CFO because she's like, and now I can tell my mom I can buy that house in Atherton finally. It's one of these places that pretends to be rural and like really easygoing. Everyone's living in McMansions and everything costs like, double-digit millions. So anyway, according to court documents, Atherton real estate agent Sam Anagnosto signed a contract with a guy named Mark Rackop. Anagnosto is, by the way, from the Atherton area in Northern California. Rackop is in Indiana, and he sent $210,000 to get a replica Batmobile made. Apparently, this is a thing that you can do. It's Rackop's company is the only company that actually is licensed by DC to make replica Batmobiles. He makes them out of fiberglass, and it's all custom car production and so forth. Apparently, they take a lot of time and effort to make. He only makes a few a year. But anyway, so this is his business. It sounds pretty cool. And honestly, if I had a couple $100,000 to drop on a car, I think I would have at least more kids and dudes looking at me like I had a cool car driving around a Batmobile than if I were driving a Lamborghini. Now, as far as women would think it was cool, I don't know. But anyway, but I know if I were driving this one around to the gym, I think I would be the toast of the place. And Anagnosto apparently thought the same thing, but Anagnosto also thought paying for this seems to be optional. So basically, he was due to make a series of scheduled payments. I don't know if he's waiting on a real estate deal to clear or whatever else, but for whatever reason, he decided, yeah, I'm due to make the payment for an extra 20 grand now. I'm not going to make it. The guy reaches out to him, says, hey, what's the deal? I'm going to proceed to the next step of your car, but I need the money. And then he blows him off for like 9 months. And he still wants his car, but he doesn't want to pay. So the guy eventually says, hey, look, man, I tried. I was entitled to cancel your car and sell it within 30 days if you didn't pay. But I want to keep you as a customer. But, this is impossible. So I got to bump you to the back of the line. And sorry, I'll get you when it's done now and once you pay it. And he said, and Anagnosto's response was basically, how dare you, sir? And decided that I'm going to pay off the entire thing right now, and then I'm immediately going to accuse you of fraud. So because what happened then is he got paid, but he said, "Yeah, but now you're at the back of the line. You're number 9 in line now. You'll have it in a long time now because I have other customers. I gotta do their stuff first." So, where the story gets super interesting, other than, like, rich, entitled jerk acts like a rich, entitled jerk to some poor guy in Indiana who makes Batmobiles, is apparently Anagnosto is friends with the San Mateo County Sheriff. And he somehow said, "Hey, I need your help." Convinces the San Mateo County Sheriff to take 4 deputies from Northern California, flies them out to Indiana, where they harass the guy, they try to seize his assets, they manage to lock down his bank account in Indiana. This is a local civil matter at best, and he does this all on San Mateo's dime. Now, this guy's no longer the sheriff because he was term limited out or whatever reason he lost his last election, whatever it was. So it's unclear what is going to happen in terms of the sheriff on this one. But this is a ridiculous abuse of county resources to go to file an out of state, civil, essentially harassment on the whole thing, at least as alleged in SF Gate and ABC News and about 80 other sources right now. Anyway, so they went out, they tried to seize his shop. They did apparently shut down his bank account. They tried to file a suit, back in San Mateo County, to claim that this guy he's stolen my money. He has my money and he hasn't given me my car yet. When the guy says, "Look, your car's coming, but you're in the back of the line right now. And by the way, thanks for shutting down my bank account. That was really good." Um, the A number of local media stories in the northern California area now aired on this one. This is actually the sort of thing that, like, you're live with Eyewitness 5 reports. This is actually the kind of thing they live for, because it's a very easy story to investigate and say, "Dude, for real? You got your buddy, the sheriff, to fly out of state with 4 deputies on the town's dime to harass a guy who didn't cough up a car when you wanted it? For real?" So anyway, he had filed a suit in San Mateo that this guy was committing all sorts of wire fraud, and they scheduled an arraignment hearing to get I'm sorry, Raycop, the builder of the cars, to have to fly into California to defend himself. And before, first of all, there was local news coverage on the whole thing, which then became national news coverage. And then someone actually said, "Yeah, this is not the venue. If you're going to sue someone like this, A, it's a civil court suit. B, the venue is where the defendant lives, not where you live, jerk." So at the moment, the DA of San Mateo County is walking away from the suit, apparently as fast as he can do it. But yeah, this is some dick stuff. And yeah, not cool, guys. I'm just going to leave it at that. All right. And then for the last story, and this is the personal heartbreaker for me. Yes, you guys know how very much I love the guys over at Eaglemoss. This is the British seller of fine, fine DC collectibles and things like that, including, let's look at some of their things here. Apparently, you can build the Titanic, the 1968 Ford Mustang. There's the Legends of Batman DC graphic novel collection, the Enterprise D, the Ghostbusters Ecto 1, and of course Back to Future, and of course, yes, the Batmobile. And they put out not only amazing models, they put out amazing graphic novels, but Eaglemoss, very, very short notice, is no more. They about 3 weeks ago, they very, very quick, abruptly announced that they were having trouble making ends meet, and within a day or two, they went into full receivership. This is information from a British comics source called downthetubes.net, which is kind of awesome. But anyway, according to them, I like them because they actually, in keeping with their show today on the accounting end of everything, they got into the actual amount of operating loss they made on the whole thing. Apparently, unlike everyone else in the mail order business, these guys actually had a significant newsstand presence where you can actually buy their different magazines and things like that, news agents. And when that all went away for about a year over in Britain, their critical revenue stream just went to hell. A lot of their model of how they do things is they would sell either part-based collectibles. So in other words, like there was like the DC chess series. So it'd be a magazine with a comic book and a single chess piece in it. You'd buy it for like 13 pounds, and then 32 pieces on a chessboard. You could buy 32 magazines, so then suddenly you have a really cool Joker, is the king chess set versus Batman or whatever the thing is. The sort of thing that would keep you buying it time after time, to fill up the set. They would do that with chess pieces. They had a big run of those. Those are all listed in ComicBase. They also had a line of DC graphic novels, which I adore and which I will now never see the completed end of. Yes, let me go and throw this up on the screen. This is my heartbreak. This is my bookshelf right across from the right of me. And yes, this is what, if you put the first 150 of these graphic novels together, this is what it looks like on your shelf. Except, I believe, right about, if you look right about where Black Canary is sitting next to, yes, Batgirl, there's one missing volume there, which I've somehow never been able to track down. But yeah, I had damn near had the entire thing. And I think wisely, I was waiting as they announced that they were going to do the next run of it, which is like the next. If you had all the graphic novels assembled all at once, it would become the next group of characters. And I kind of wanted to know, well, what group of characters is it before I spend another $1 jillion filling this in with a British imported graphic novel set. Anyway, it turns out I was wise to have waited because it would never have been completed. Unfortunately, for all the people who had the car magazines, they also have the same problem in that if you had the Enterprise D or the Ecto 1 or any of these guys here, you will never complete your set. Because what happens, in your car magazine here, you'd get like the front bumper and, some information about the Ghostbusters, and then you get like the front couple tires and this stuff. And month after month, you'd get piece by piece of this amazing model. But you will never see the end of this now. And so for all of us who are halfway through our models or our sets or things like that, it looks like it's been sent to a magistrate's court to go into receivership. There's no word out. The sites for Eaglemoss they're not just down, they are hard down. They are 404. Everything you're seeing right now is coming from the Wayback Machine. If we look at what could have been, really. I doubt we shall see them again. You might see on something like Zavi, you might see some of these things showed up as remainders. If so, if anyone gets a hold of a line of DC graphic novel number 110, I will pay princely amounts of money for it. But so on this one, Mike Beam says Enterprise D was 14 issues at $69 a piece. Dang, man, that would have been a hell of a collectible at the end of the day. But I can't even imagine what that's a lot of investment, man. All right, so anyway, that's about it for the news today. Thanks everyone who did this one. I promise to God I'm never going to go as deep dive into the stats of a financial company if I can ever avoid it in the future. But being that these are like the serious guys in our industry, I think it felt warranted this one time. Let's go ahead and turn that key off so I'm not sitting there doing me. And let's see here. Greg also wants to remind everyone, don't forget we have a dedicated thread on the ComicBase message boards. We can suggest live stream topics and demos for the live stream. Thank you everyone who joined us, and thank you to our mods. Some other comments here. I didn't get into the whole thing. Jetsy asked me, it's time for Jim Lee to go. Yeah, I do think, as comic fans on this one, I think it's bracing how little the physical funny books matter to the bottom lines of these companies. It's like rounding error upon rounding error. I do think, at least if you believe Zaslav's public statements of this one, he seems pretty invested. I mean, he used the term IP about 50 times during the presentation. IP is intellectual property. It seems like he's taking very seriously the idea that we have these brands and the brands are worth something, and we're not going to just pollute them. We're not going to just swap them around and make alt versions of these characters and spam them out into the universe for no reason, especially if it dilutes our ability to make a lot of money selling the property as a theatrical release, as a TV release, as things like that. So I would expect that when he turns his attention to the comic books, he's going to want somebody at the helm who isn't going to play as fast and loose with the branding. I mean, when I saw what Disney was doing to their own market valuation, I'm like, you know, as a parent, it's stunning to me that Disney is almost like shorthand for good, wholesome, well executed, old fashioned American entertainment. I mean, as a parent, like it's almost like an implicit pledge that I can sit my kids down in front of anything that's ever been on Disney, and at least as far as your memory serves, you'll sit there and think, oh, they'll enjoy the same kind of magic I knew as a kid, and there's nothing in there that would ever give me a moment's pause as to whether or not it's okay for my kid to watch. And then the clowns who are running Disney have been doing what they've been doing for a couple, 3 years, where to the point where they got their own executives on a leaked roundup call that's recorded on Skype talking about, their not so secret agendas to insert all sorts of stuff that you don't want your small children getting into. And that they were going to be inserting this into very, very young kids' content. And this is just, I'm like, how much brand damage did you do in one call to a brand that's as iconic as anything in America I can think of? Similarly, I got into a discussion with some of the people from the comics retailing community, the guys who analyze the figures, where there's different story ideas that I'm going to reimagine this iconic character as if they were gay, or I'm going to reimagine this iconic character as if they were just some kind of flamingly crazy thing that nobody is ever going to want to put on their lunchbox. Nobody's ever going to want to wear the t-shirt. No one's ever going to put that logo on their car. I mean, you're sitting there going like, what are you doing to your brand? I mean, it's one thing if you say, oh yeah, this is an Elseworld story, it's completely out of canon, it's like a just imagine over in Crazy World. If this happened, maybe if you were really careful about it, you could do those kind of experiments and see if maybe there's something there. But honestly, they're self-indulgent to the max, and the way they're going to get reported in the media is, oh, did you see they just made Batman gay, or they just made Superman gay, and here he is kissing his purple-haired boyfriend on the cover. That's going to be the image that the normies out there carry with them on the whole thing. And when that happens, what did you just do to the revenues of the next Superman movie? Because I'll tell you what you didn't do. You didn't add $100 million to the bottom line of it because, oh, well, good. Now we'll attract all the progressives to watch the cavorting adventures of Superman and his gay boyfriend as we go through the next Justice League movie. I'm like, guys, what the hell? So, yeah, I don't know, man. My sense is Zaslav has announced basically that party time is over. We don't have the money to fool around with. He sounds like he's got a year or two to really try to get the ship right on these companies. But also, man, this is a complex corporate environment, which includes amongst their other key line properties, which they got to make money of. Like one of the key things they're doing in linear content is news. And guess what news holding they've got? They got CNN. So you got a lot of people who are going to have a lot of strong opinions about where they want to see things going. And it's going to be really interesting to see if he can maintain the corporate discipline to get the company back on message, back producing things that wide varieties of people are going to want to see, that don't just take alienating shots at the people who were loyal to you, that were willing to pay upscale, first run theatrical release kind of money for things. I mean, if the only people who are watching your stuff are the people who are getting it ad supported for free, then you are screwed. Because the advertising revenue, they even said in the call multiple times, is like, yeah, we expect the ad revenue to be really tough. As we dip into, they didn't say recession, they said less favorable macroeconomic conditions, which basically says, yeah, we're heading into a long down period of recession, and yeah, people aren't going to be spending money. If you actually look at ad sales in the internet era right now, they're cratering, which is why the bottom lines of companies like Meta and things like that are going to hell right now, because people don't have the money to throw around on ads. So yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see if he can do it. I think I wish him well. I don't have a pony. I don't have a dog in this race, but to the extent that I like seeing news stories put out by people who care about the things I care about and who want to make good entertainment that a lot of people can enjoy, then I think he's probably a good man to get there. And he's getting there because he wants to make money. He's not getting there because he loves the properties. He's not getting there because been a Superman fan from way back or whatever. He's really offended that the core of Superman has been violated by recent releases. He's getting there because he wants to make money, and that's not such a bad way to make the kind of entertainment we all want. It's not going to make epic, great entertainment a lot of times, but it's probably a better lodestone than I want to send a message to the people of the world, so I'm going to use this major property to do it. As they would famously say in Hollywood, if you want to send a message, buy a full page ad in Variety, but for God's sake, don't do it in your movie. Anyway, that's about all for today, guys. Thanks for attending, and we'll catch you on the next one. You take care. Bye-bye.